Hello and thank you for joining me today. I'm Jerrel, and today I will be sharing my analysis and comparison of the two hero shooter games, Concord and Overwatch. Concord is an award-winning, universally beloved game. It's currently Sony's best-selling game, and it's the most widely played live service game at the moment. So I want to take a look at the characters because gamers have expressed that they don't like the designs of the characters and have asked me to take a look and make a comparison as to why the designs are just unappealing, and from an artistic standpoint they're quite weak. So I myself am a commercial games developer. I run my own studio, and I want to let you know the intention of this video is not to criticize or insult. I am only here to make statements of observation and to explain what the point of character design is. So for anyone that is getting into game development, you are getting into art, especially if you want to get into character design, or you've already started and you are still pretty early on in your art journey or your character design journey, then I hope this video will be useful to you. For general gamers, I hope that it will be interesting just to point out and put into words some things that you understand. You know these things, you understand them, you're just not exactly sure how to communicate them and say them, so I hope this video can help you with that. So in art, the absolute most important thing is intent. What are you saying with your art? This is why when it comes to AI-generated imagery, I have never used the word art to describe that, because art has intent. What are you trying to say? The process that goes into expressing your intent is art. And AI does not do that. It takes so much control away from whoever is producing the product that it cannot be considered art. So AI-generated imagery in no way cannot be classified as art. It's imagery. So I want to start out by explaining design philosophy and aesthetic. That is how you express your intent. Your design philosophy is something that tends to be unique to each individual artist, but your design philosophy, that is something that applies to game designers as well. For those who specialize in creating the UI, who come up with the game concepts, who write the story, all of those have their own kind of design philosophy, and you develop that through doing the work and cultivating yourself as an artist, as a creator. The aesthetic is really just the superficial layer on how you express your intent. Visual language is something that is extremely important. It is something that we as a culture have built over decades. Visual language is a wide range of identifiers used to communicate ideas. It is something that we have all, on an unspoken level, agreed upon because we built upon a visual language for years. We all share a visual language. A clear example of that would be a big character. When you see a big character, you would naturally think that character is able to sustain more damage, but they are probably going to be slow. When you see a small character, you tend to think that character probably can sustain less damage, but he's going to be fast. So that is just a simple example of visual language, to express something visually in a way that everyone can communicate with. And I am not familiar with Overwatch, so I'll let you know that right off the bat. I have not played Overwatch, I'm not familiar with the characters, but I can see the characters and I can understand what each character should play like, what they should feel like, what their stats, spreads, and their loadouts probably are going to be like based on how the characters look. Because Overwatch adheres very closely to our universally agreed upon visual language. On Concord, I cannot tell what the visual language is here. I can't tell what the characters are trying to say to me. And a prime example of Concord would be like an English speaker, me, going to Japan and then yelling at people in Japan for not speaking English. It's not Japan's fault that I don't speak Japanese. It's my fault for not speaking Japanese. I can't understand what they are saying in Japan. I'm yelling at them to speak English. Right now, that is what Concord is doing. Concord is speaking with a totally different visual language, and it seems like the developers and the defenders of Concord are yelling at everyone else for not speaking Concord's language when Concord has just invented its whole new visual language that nobody understands. And I've just noticed this, and it's so upsetting to me just while I was talking about this. And I'm pretty upset that I've noticed this because I can't unsee it, and it's really frustrating now. This on Concord is the hero shot, and it's meant to be composed in such a way. And it looks like they were trying to compose this by height, but the problem is you have these characters' height lines, and you have these characters' height lines, and there is a huge problem here. Compositionally, it's an abject failure in terms of composition and framing. I've worked for years as a professional photographer and visual artist, and the simple solution here would have been to take this character and put her here, and put this character and put him here. Before we get started, I just want to let you know a little bit about my qualifications. I am a licensed and certified in terms of training and assessment. So when it comes to making judgments on software, on art, on visual products, that is within my certifications and qualifications to do that. That has been part of my job in the past, and I'm only extending the courtesy here to help other artists get a head start on their journey as well. Before I start, also, people have asked me if I would consult Sony when it comes to Concord because they're having some difficulty here managing the brand. So on the answer of would I be willing to consult Sony on a professional level? And my answer is it would require a significant monthly retainer for me to do that for a minimum of 12 months, which is my minimum for a retainer. And I say a significant monthly retainer because Sony is a company that desperately needs advisors and consultants who are not totally out of touch with the rest of the world. But I have no interest in working with a company that treats its audience and its paying customers like cattle. And Sony is a company that does not view gamers as equals. And so I have no interest in working with a company like that. So let's go ahead and have a look at our first characters here. We are taking a look at Reinhardt from Overwatch and Big Bertha from Concord. The first thing I want to point out is that these characters have similar shape, but extremely different form. So what do I mean by shape? In general, you tend to sometimes hear online people discuss the silhouette of a character. That's kind of loosely describes what the shape is. It's sort of the overall visual component of whatever it is you are looking at, the character that you are looking at. And their shapes are very similar. They seem to be conveying a message that should say they probably play probably a similar play style. I have not played either of these games, but what I do want to point out is the form is totally different. And that means that the various smaller components that really build the more intricate visual identity are totally different. This is totally cohesive throughout the entire design with Reinhardt. I've only really briefly looked at these characters before as I was setting them up to take a look at, and I'm looking at them now, and I could tell, I've spent some time looking at Concord characters, but on the Overwatch characters, I could tell I wasn't going to need to look at these characters for very long, because they're so clear in what they do, and they're very good at what they do. I want to point out here, let's just go ahead and do our exercise of blurring. So we've put these characters into grayscale, and let's have a look at the distribution of tonal values. You see you have these nice light areas here, and of course there are highlights because of the lighting, but beyond that, these components are designed. You can see even here where it's, you know, in the darker side of the image, it's still catching the light. So you can see you have these nice bright values here. The edges, we have a very good understanding of trim, of material thickness, whereas in Concord there has been no display of understanding when it comes to the very basics of material. So we can see how the trim on the knee pads is meant to catch the light, and that actually serves as a highlight. You have these lighter areas here. You have the darker areas here, which is quite balanced. Now, if this were to be a Concord design and I were offering some advice on it, I would probably say something like, oh, you know, let's make these areas just a little bit darker to give a little more dynamic balance. But this does not need that. And the reason why it does not need that is because there is a strong understanding of separation between the visual components. There is form here. You see these various components. They're separated by line. These each catch light and shadows in their own separate way. And which is why, in this situation, because this is such a competent design, I would say it does not need more dynamic between the lights and the dark, because it understands that it exists in a 3D space and it catches light and shadow in a way to where that is what creates that tonal dynamic, while not becoming messy and cluttery, and while still providing its own tonal dynamic values and range there. You can see this is basically just flat and gray the whole way through. Now, there's a concept in photography that is about guiding the viewer's focus through the image. That is something that, in general, I don't really see character designs take that into account. But that is something that I do see with Overwatch designs, is guiding the viewer's focus through the image. And I'm so impressed. So this is already excellent to begin with, having a look at that design for Reinhardt. And we'll just be fair, and we'll go ahead and with this exercise, we'll make it even blurrier, even blurrier. In my previous video, I was explaining that if your character is not interesting when they're blurred, they're not interesting to look at when they're blurred, then they're just not interesting. And this, to me, this is still cool to look at. And this is not something that I think is interesting to look at. Just the usage of the components to express the form is in a way that isn't very visually engaging. Even if we take that a step further, this is still quite interesting to look at, and it's still highly identifiable. Let's go ahead and back on out of there. And then you add in the yellow or gold. And Reinhardt absolutely does not even need that to work well. You have this sort of silver, I would say, is the primary. The black would be the secondary. And then you add in the gold. And this is eye-catching in a way where there is very good distribution. So you have the usage of different colors in layers, so there's cohesion within the character. If you have a look at Big Bertha, this is already its own color and material. You have these, I don't understand what this component is supposed to be, and it doesn't appear anywhere else on the character. This component does not appear anywhere else, neither does this or these. So there's absolutely zero cohesion on this design. Let's look at Reinhardt, and if you have a look, you'll notice the layers in which, so you need to view these as horizontal layers. Let's say that this is a layer here, and here, 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 and here. The usage of your colors and tones through those layers is what builds an interesting image with cohesion. You have the gold that appears here and here. It appears on the fingers, so it looks very good in movement, even if the arms are not close to the body. There's still enough here with the gold. You have that portion in the torso. It is used sparingly around this area. And of course, that cohesive color is used here and here. And you also have, just for a bit of accent, are these brown shoulder straps in there. And if this was a Concord design, I know that they would only put the leather just there and would have left it. But these designers very clearly understand what they're doing. This is the perfect example of competent character design, not just visual design, but competent character design, because this leather visual element also exists here in a layered manner, and it appears here. So there is logical consistency. To me, as a viewer, I look at that and think, oh, it's probably padding because maybe the armor might be a little, tough and uncomfortable. Maybe in this area, maybe it helps to hold the armor in place. So logically, it looks like it's conveying something, some sort of padding maybe, to make the combat, you know, armor a little more comfortable to wear. And please correct me if I'm wrong. Again, I don't actually know anything about these characters. There are cool details like this lion head, and it's got a scar here through its right eye, and Reinhardt has a scar on his left eye. You have this visual motif of the lion repeated here, and not only is this such a cool visual motif, but Reinhardt himself also has the look of a lion due to his facial hair, his very fine mustache, his lion-like beard, how it flares out along the sides. He has 3 occurrences of a visual motif that build brilliant cohesion for this character. Excellent expression. A+, 10 out of 10 for Reinhardt. Oh, okay, so I want to say that I will not be awarding grades to these because I don't want to make it seem like I'm here to insult and pick on the Concord character art. So I won't be awarding grades to the Concord art. But for the Overwatch art, A+. I don't know how I can award that extra credit. I think that's my favorite design. I've seen a couple of Overwatch designs. Let's go ahead and move on to our next character, Symmetra. This is excellent. There are so many concepts that you have to learn as an artist by doing different things. If you want to create, if you want to make art and share it with people, you have to make sure that you live your life, you go out and you have so many different life experiences, because you need life experiences. You need to find situations where you see that your understanding of the world is not yet sufficient. You need to learn more. You need to see more. When you make mistakes, you need to understand what those mistakes are and how to improve yourself. This was my first time seeing Symmetra's design. Whoa, Nelly, this is a cool character. I would not mind, after seeing the couple characters, I actually want to download Overwatch and try it now. And it's not even the kind of game that I enjoy playing, but these characters look so engaging. They're just awesome. So I don't even need to point out how cool it looks, but what is so important and what is so hugely problematic with Concord is they are going for hyper-realistic or hyper-reality when it comes to the designs themselves. They're going for hyper-reality, these big, loud, bombastic designs, but they've chosen to go with a photorealistic aesthetic, especially when it comes to the proportions. They've chosen what look like photorealistic proportions. These are the proportions of human beings. This is actually how thick a real person's thighs and calves would be. This is, you know, what their shoulders, how thick their torso would be. But the problem is that is clashing with the hyper-realism of the outfits. So they are 2 different perspectives that do not work together. Those are 2 different approaches. With Overwatch, they understand that they have employed hyper-realism when it comes to the core visual elements, and so they cannot rely on photorealism when it comes to their body proportions, so they have chosen body proportions that are not realistic and they're more based on fantasy. And that is why these Overwatch designs work so well, and why a character like Symmetra visually flows extremely well. Again, I do not want to sound critical here. I don't want to sound mean. I'm not here to demean the developers of Concord, but the more I see their work, the closer I look at it, the worse it gets, and the more clear it is to me that the people that created this do not understand video games. When you are expressing a character in a video game, you have to understand that your character has form and shape on the screen, and you have to be able to show the separation between the character's arms and legs, especially in movement. Otherwise, it will just look like a mess on the screen. With Overwatch, these characters have more slender and long limbs, which allows a separation of the form and allows the shape to be more clear and easy to look at and discern on the screen. You can see what that character is. If you have a look at this character, you can very clearly see the shape of the character. even when this is in movement. But because this coat is here, this is the form that we are seeing on this character. But then you have that, you have this, goodness, that comes out, and then you have this. Of course, you have these. So, I'm just going to ask you a question here. Which one of these is more clearly expressed in terms of the character itself? If you see this moving on screen, which one can you understand faster? Just visually looking at it, which do you think you can understand just at a glance? If a character is moving through an environment quickly, which makes more sense to you? So I would like to point out the use of the colors here, again, in layers. Excellent cohesion on Symmetra. This, obviously, an excellent color that matches the skin tone. It doesn't clash with the skin tone at all because these are both characters with darker skin. And this is a color that complements that skin color. It does not clash or drown out the skin tone. And it actually allows the skin tone to be one of the defining traits of this color palette. So it is actually using that skin color as a defining part of that visual identity. Excellent shape here, great color, and if this was an Overwatch, if this was a Concord design, they would probably just leave it just here. Oh no, if this was a Concord design, the whole body section would be blue here, and then it wouldn't be anywhere else. But this is an Overwatch design, so you have the blue there. The blue exists on the earrings for cohesion. Again, you're layering the use of your colors, and you're separating the layers with other colors, other materials, and other tones that help it have interesting dynamic and contrast. So we have the blue here, the blue there, and also the blue on the palms as well. And to make sure that there is just that last bit of cohesion, it's subtle, but there is the blue there on the knees as well with the light. Excellent. You don't lose that sense of cohesion because you have this nice visual guide that is pointing your focus down like that with the gold, and you have the gold trim. Again, the use of trim is very important, and you have the gold just there. You have this, whatever this material is, I don't know what it is. It just looks like some sort of armor material to me, but this armor material is used here, it's used here, and here. So it is showing layers. Not just that, it is the same armor material that is used up here. So this is excellent use of layering. Not only do we have these, I chose these characters because they have the same plain black pants, but what is interesting is that there is a separation of material. You have this material here, and you have this material here, and there's a hint of blue that is leaning into the motif of the blue of this character. Then you also have this visual element here, which is a use of the gold accent. Extremely tasteful, well done. You also, where this could have been plain, there is a separation with a seam that has a slightly darker color there. This design is a visual triumph. This is my first time having a close look at it, and I'm so delighted. I'm so pleased to see this design. Okay, I thought Reinhardt was my favorite character, but I think I'm gonna go. I think after this, I think I have to try Overwatch. Having a look at this design, I'm thinking, oh, let's have a look at Michelle Jackson's pants. There isn't any kind of detail here, and there is a very small amount of detail here with this sort of line work, but it is on the inside of the leg that is the least, or one of the least visual parts of the character, so it's very hard to see and you don't see it, and it actually does not provide any textural or tonal contrast to the rest of the pants. So that's pointless. There's no point in having that. It makes me a little bit sad having to look at the Michelle Jackson, because with a stronger understanding of character design of these concepts that I've been mentioning, this could have been such a cool design. You have the legs here with the knee pads, shoes. You have this part here with his Asymmetrical, which is a shortcut if you're designing a character and you want them to look like a main character, a protagonist. Incorporate asymmetry, where the right side is different from the left side. It's a visual shortcut to make characters just stand out and look cool. This character's so cool. I'm sort of really, I have so much respect for how cool this design is. I'm sorry if I'm going on a little too much. This is so rad. Okay. You have the distribution of the light tones here. Let's see. You have this very light here, 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 along here, and again up here. And the dark tones, again, they allowed her skin to be part of the composition. You have this nice gold as well. So her skin is actually used as part of the composition. But you see these dark tones on the hand, they actually exist here. They exist here. And those darker tones, you have the darkest in there, here, and here. And then you have these gray sort of middle tones that are very clearly separate from this. So you have, again, a darker tone, and then your middlemost tone would be this here. Excellent. And on this design, this whole area is just flat. All of that is totally flat, but this does catch the light. I will say it's not pleasant to look at because I can't tell what it is. It's not that pleasant to look at. There is a use of the arm cuff here for a little bit of tonal dynamic, which is nice. You have the absolute brightest portions. The absolute brightest tones are here and here. And a little bit on the glasses, unfortunately, and I'll explain a huge problem with this, and then at the very bottom here. And the gloves they could have done something with the gloves here. Okay, I'm going to zoom in. And what is so sad here is the designers, they don't understand. They don't understand. The shape that they've chosen for the glasses is pointing to something. You only ever use angles like an arrow, because an arrow is part of our visual language that we have built and agreed upon for hundreds of years. Arrows point to things of focus. This is an arrow. And what is it pointing to? Forehead. Forehead, forehead, forehead. What is important about the forehead? I don't know, but in terms of visual flow, it pulls you out to these pom-poms here. It was so close. If you have a look at the use of arrows on Symmetra, it sounds like I think this is, well, I don't think this is such a brilliant design, because we have the use of flow here, is that this is an arrow here that pulls your focus to her eyes. You have an arrow here that pulls your focus to the eyes, and you have the visor. The shape of the visor is actually another arrow that pulls you up to the eyes. You have this ornament on her chest, which is an arrow that actually does. This is such a cool design. Very cool. Okay, I thought it would be a little disingenuous if I didn't also give a breakdown analysis of my character design as well. So I have a green screen filter turned on, so I've lost a little bit of color on my character design, but this is quite a brown tie. Now, this tie actually matches my darker skin tone, so it actually complements the skin tone. It does not clash. It doesn't pull attention away from anywhere else that's important on my character. But it's basically the same color as my skin, but just significantly darker. So in this situation, it's a very good choice. You can see the shape actually is an arrow that points down. The tie actually brings the focus right back up, and it brings it up to my face, which is an important place to bring the viewer. I have an accent here. I have this gold pin, so I have the use of gold pin. Now, one of the flaws with this particular character design is that this actually really needed to have been used somewhere else. So I would have strongly recommended using perhaps a gold earring here, but not a hoop, but when it's something smaller and understated. I would have strongly recommended possibly a bracelet. So I would say like probably a thicker bracelet on this, and maybe on the right hand, possibly a gold ring, maybe at least on 2 different fingers. So that would be a better distribution. So in this situation, the use of the gold flare here, it lacks cohesion, but it's not, you can fix that. You can fix that with DLC. So I'm going to do a little bit of DLC now and just make a quick adjustment. So let me go ahead. I think it's $3 for this alt, so let's try it. Is that it? It was $3. Okay, so in this alt, the only thing that changed was the tie, which really sucks because it was $3. But there is a little bit more cohesion with this character design now. So if you have a look at this flare here, it's like a gold sort of metal thing. And while this isn't metal, it does actually share similar tonal values to the visual flare here. So that this tie actually, it's pretty good. It's not a bad alt, but it wasn't worth $3. In my previous video about the Concord character designs, there was like 3 comments from people that said that I have no understanding of color or tone or character design, and they said that I didn't know what I was talking about. And so it's so important to listen to people who disagree with you. If people do not agree with you, if they have a different perspective, you cannot afford to drown them out. You cannot just cover your ears and say, I'm not listening to you. Because we've seen what happens if you do that. So when people say that you are wrong, you need to listen. You need to try to understand someone else's perspective. And so when someone leaves negative comments and says, you're an idiot, you don't know what you're talking about, I read their comment, I try to understand what they're saying, and then I ask myself, is this person right? Let me check if they could possibly be right, because maybe they are right. Maybe I am wrong. And it is important to do that. So to show you that I do actually understand character design, I do understand the use of color, of tonal values, I am now going to spend $5 on a new alt for myself. This is my Concord character alt skin. So here we go, $5. How do I look? Oh, Anyway, this is my Concord alt. So you can see the great use of blues. It's nice and blue the whole way through, except you have this sort of shocking electric blue on the tie here that doesn't blend with the blue of the shirt really, because it's a softer blue. This is really intensely vibrant. And then the vest again is softer, but then the vest is a very similar blue to the shirt, but it's not tonally different enough, so it's clashing. The same issue with the tie and the shirt. And then I don't understand why there are goggles on this alt. I don't get. And then out of nowhere, why is this bright red? Why is there a couple stripes of bright red? I don't understand the plastic helmet. But this is what a Concord character design is. This is the equivalent of a Concord character design. And I paid $5 for this. So, I mean, I paid the money. I may as well see what it's like when I select the character. Let's get at 'em and splat 'em. Whoa, let's make some noise. Who's ready to go splat? So, Tracer, I've picked characters that are similar. I think these are 2 similar characters. And I'll try to speed things up because I think I'm going on and on, but I just think these designs are fantastic. Let's go ahead and have a look at our use of color, our distribution of the tonal dynamic here. You don't really need me to explain it to you. I think you can see this for yourself. But again, I will just point out this is a nice bright color here. Here, look at the nice contrast in terms of the dynamic range in the tones. You have your darker colors here, and it uses the hair as one of the important defining darker tones. You have a darker tone there, and you have your darker tones. So this is not just relying on horizontal layers for tonal distribution. It is actually also relying on vertical layers. So you have this here. You also have these to help express some form, and you have this. Oh, this is a cool character. This is cool. In Lieutenant Tupperware's case, the brightest tone here is so similar to the darkest tone, which would be, well, the gloves, they stand on their own in this strange situation, but on the body itself, this is by far the darkest tone and it doesn't appear anywhere else, which is hugely problematic visually because there's absolutely no cohesion. This appears on its own and nowhere else. Otherwise, the entire rest of the character is just a flat mid-tone, basically. The use of colors here, again, you really need to restrict your use of colors and understand your primary color, which is orange. Orange. You have your secondary color, which is white. White is your secondary color, which in this case, orange, cream. But there is another secondary color here, which is this gray. And I mentioned in my other previous video about character design, you can have multiple secondary colors. You can have multiple accent colors, but you need to understand how to balance those in terms of distributing those details through the character. So you then have your accent color, and in this case, Tracer's accent color is this blue. If this was a Concord character design, this would be the only occurrence of the blue, but because this is an Overwatch character, there is consideration for a character, cohesion and coherence, and you have blue here as well. To build that cohesion, you also have orange here, and along the knuckles, you have the use of your armor material, but there is a use of layering. As you can see, there is a horizontal layer with the wrists, so it separates the armor, but you still have the use of the armor. You have the orange there. You have your layering here, so you have the white shoe. Even though it's not the same material as the armor, it has the same tonal value as it, the same color, and it is made interesting by this strap, which uses the dark gray for the accent color. You have orange at the very bottom. This is a triumph of character design. This is fantastic. You also have a vertical use of an accent color there that is the same color, just brighter to add dynamic, so it doesn't look messy, because it's basically the same color, just a bit brighter. The same with this value here. And you have the use of a vertical element to bring that dark brown or gray down towards the character so it builds flow. These are the kind of designs I really like looking at. I've gone over Lieutenant Tupperware's design in my previous video, and I'm going to be honest, I don't really want to bum myself out here. But there is nothing in this design that has any flow. If we just have a look at the character's posing and the profile here, let's see that the attention is brought up right here. This is bringing your attention right up to the eyes. And this here is bringing your attention to this point here because of the shape. So do you understand what's happening with the viewer's focus? And it's not just the pose. I've seen these in motion. And this is where your focus is drawn, the top of the Tupperware. These visual elements needed to have cohesion. They needed to appear. They needed better understanding of the use of layering, of verticality, of horizontal layers. Okay, let's go ahead and have a look at our next and final set of characters. We are looking at Genji and Android 99. So these are nice understated designs, a nice calm way to finish this looking at these characters. I'm going to did I even put the last set in grayscale? You know, it doesn't matter. You understand what's going on here. Let's have a look at the use and the distribution of our tonal values. We have our brightest values here. Let's see. Over here. But we are drawn up with not our brightest values, but close to our brightest values, and they point you up. They are pointing up, and they bring your attention here. For cohesion, we have great use of the verticality. We have our layering here. So here is where the use of our brightest tonal values are. You have a nice hint of it just there. Yes, yes. Let's have a look at our brightest values here. Unfortunately, we don't have our brightest values. This is so flat in terms of tonality that you cannot guide the viewer if everything just has the same tone. And unfortunately, in this situation, these are the brightest in terms of the tonal value, and then the lines on the pants. And this is interesting because it's so similar. Their posing is so similar. It's almost as if I've seen people copy homework. This is... See, it's still hard to tell what's going on, but if you just have a look at the tones here, you can tell this character is still guiding your focus, and you can still see what's going on here. And even honestly, at this stage, like, this is it's a little uninteresting to look at because there's so little detail. So in terms of detail, it's uninteresting to look at, but it is the posing, it is the values and the distribution of the different tonal values that is interesting. You have this as well. So even though this is so blurred that the shape is not that interesting, oh, hold on, there's something, okay, I'm a little bit wrong. This is quite interesting to look at. There's even this here. There's things, okay, no. I was wrong. My first statement was wrong. This is actually pretty interesting to look at, even when it's blurred. And this has the same appeal as when it is not blurred. And this is a design that should be boring, right? Because you only have this gray here, you have a darker gray, and then you have a black. Oh my goodness. This feels like copied homework. Oh no. Oh dear. Uh-oh. But the designers here, the artist understands very strongly the importance, the vital importance of a strong accent color. We have this great cybernetic green. They understand our universal language when it comes to colors. We associate colors and color themes with certain concepts and ideas. I like, oh yeah. These stripes, they evoke a sense of Adidas, which is a brand that we associate with sport. So I already have the feeling, I know nothing about this character, but I feel this character is quite athletic and sporty because it is evoking a shared cultural knowledge and a shared cultural memory. Oh yeah, I really like the use of that just there. Again, you have your distribution. Again, I don't need to repeat the points here. Oh, look at that diagonal line. Look at these lines. Look at the lines. Okay, this isn't my favorite Android design or whoever, whatever. I don't know. I'm assuming he's some sort of cyborg or Android because Android 99 is very clearly just stealing the design, the overall concept of this character. Oh, this is cool. This isn't my favorite cyborg or Android design, but it's an extremely good one. And to make sure that there is dynamic so it's not visually boring to look at, because you would think, oh, it's just lines, it's just lines. These nice, tasteful use of round visual elements. You have the metallic armor. So you have your material here, use of materials. You have your, that are covering the phalanges. You have, again, oh, the ears point down. They point down to the central focus here. You have the armor on the head. It's also along the back. And you have the armor on the feet. And why this is so excellent, this is excellent, is that this is not armor. This is not the same material as the armor, but it shares the same color and tonal value as the armor. Yes, as well, I'm saying armor, but it would be the metal components. Again, I don't understand if this is supposed to be armor, but the metal components. Yes, yes, this character. Okay. I'm not just exaggerating and giving out reactions. You know, I don't want to seem like I'm trying to give this a reaction. This is my first time seeing these designs, and they are great. These are, I'm extremely passionate when it comes to art, and especially when it comes to character design. I have been designing characters my entire life. and I've been pushing myself to improve, to understand as much as I can when it comes to designing characters, to expressing concepts. Yes, I am. I'm gonna go look up some more Overwatch characters after this video. This is so great. And this character does not do any of those things. What is wrong is that this whole thing is just flat. The accent color here is used in one place. This is the only accent color, and it does not exist anywhere else. It is not used anywhere else. It should have appeared either on this layer, or this layer, or even on this layer. And it was not. You have this accent color, which does not appear anywhere else. This accent layer should have appeared somewhere else. So there is, I hope you understand, again, I'm not trying to be negative, I'm not criticizing or demeaning anyone, but there's a complete lack of understanding of character design. Character design is a very specific branch of visual expression and of visual art. It's extremely specific. It has its very, very strict requirements, and there is absolutely zero understanding of that here. So thanks very much for watching the video. I hope you've enjoyed that. Let me know if you enjoyed that, if it's been useful to you, and please let me know if you do want me to take a look at other characters and other games. This video, again, it was heavily requested, so I hope you enjoyed that. I hope it's been interesting, and if you could do me a favor, I would really appreciate it if you, and if it's possible, if you can, call your parents. Don't text them, call them so they can hear you. Tell them you love them. Organize a lunch with them. Let someone in your life know that they matter to you. See ya.